Welcome to Friends at Work podcast, the podcast about friendship, work, and the interrelation of the two.
Hi, Toye here. This week I talked with someone who found love at work. In my conversation with Zadie Oleksiw, one of the sweetest people I've met in a while, we discussed her work experience, women role models, finding love at work, the challenges of being female at work, and lots more. Listen.
My name is Zadie Oleksiw.
Okay, and what does Zadie do?
Zadie lives in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
She bikes, walks around the city, and likes to travel.
Interesting. So, just out of curiosity, what are some of the places you've been to that we think would be fun to hear about? Yeah.
This weekend I went to Assateague Island, which is an island off the coast of Maryland, and it has wild ponies.
Really?
Yeah.
Wild ponies in Maryland.
In Maryland, yeah. They're
wow.
They're beautiful to look at, and they're very domesticated. So they will come to your campsite and eat all your food, and they will bite you. So yeah, you're not supposed to touch the ponies.
Okay,
because they're aggressive.
Did you get any ponies by anybody in camp?
We didn't get bitten by any, but they did raid our campsite, and they ate some of our coffee. So we had to shoo them away. And
so does coffee? Do ponies get a coffee high? That would be an interesting thing.
I didn't want to find out.
I got a coffee high. It's like me with coffee. It's like when I take black coffee on an empty stomach, I'm literally bouncing off the walls.
Oh,
like,
yes. Me too.
I feel like Roadrunner.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's a good thing about coffee.
Oh, so have you had your coffee this morning?
I have. My nitro brew from WeWork. Brought to you by WeWork.
Brought to you by WeWork.
It's amazing. That's why I love WeWork.
Yes. Shout out to WeWork. You guys are awesome. So, we're here to talk about friends at work. And I deliberately, like I told you, you asked me, you didn't send me questions ahead. I was like, I'm going to put you on the spot.
I feel on the spot.
You're on camera. All right. So for those of you listening, we're recording this on video also. So do you have any memories of, like your first memories of the friends you made at work? Like, it doesn't have to be the first friend you made at work, but maybe your earliest memory of friends at work.
Ooh. Well, the first job I can remember is being a camp counselor.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a nice job.
It paid $4 an hour. And I remember feeling like that was a lot.
Job.
I was 13 at the time, so I was a junior counselor.
Okay.
And I met a girl or woman who ended up being a mentor to me until today. And that was
nice.
For me 12 years ago, and she since then has also helped me get many other jobs in restaurants and catering and babysitting, and she's just a really great friend of mine. So
nice.
I remember I think of her as my first friend from work.
That's cool. That's a very nice story. I like that.
She's wonderful.
So now have you done personality tests, and would you say that you're a friendly person?
Myers-Briggs, is that what you mean?
Okay, yes.
Well,
I mean, there are a ton of others.
Yeah, there's tons. I don't remember my letter sequence, but I do know that BuzzFeed did some characterizations of Disney characters with the sequences, and I'm Aladdin. I don't remember what my letters are, though.
I'm saying that's so funny. Okay.
I think I'm friendly.
Yeah.
Opposed to unfriendly?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not even
I'm
not juxtaposing it exactly. I'm just, some people don't consider themselves friendly, even though they are, and some people consider themselves friendly, and everybody's like, woof,
I really value making friends and having the time to socialize at work. And that's one of the things that's been hard for me at WeWork because I work by myself. As far as my company, I don't have a lot of face-to-face interactions except for with you and a couple other people. And so I missed that. In previous jobs I've had work friends that I really value.
Okay. So you sound like someone who has made a lot of good friends at work.
Yeah. I met my fiance at work.
Oh, now. I was saving that for a later time, but now that you've delved into it, could you tell us a little, as much as you want to, or as little as you want to, how did that work friend turn into romance?
Ooh, is that...
Hey,
PG audience?
Hey, look, say it as you want. I mean, I have had a guest on this show who used the word MILF. So there's hardly anything you can say that's gonna, yeah.
All right. So I was actually in a previous long-term relationship when I started that job and where my current fiance was working. And that ended. And, I mean, there's more details, and it involves Vegas, a work trip to Vegas.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas?
Yeah, except for our relationship, which
okay,
then blossomed.
That came out of Vegas, but we don't know what happened in
But what actually
Vegas.
happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. But yeah, we have an annual conference in Vegas. It's
just both of you, or something bigger?
The whole industry, the solar industry, has a conference in
So
Vegas.
just as a background to this, this is first time we're mentioning this. So also to let our listeners know that you also work in the solar industry.
I work in the solar industry. Yep.
Yes. Okay.
That's right. Yeah. And I currently do, but at my previous job I also did, and so we were at a conference and we formed our relationship, and then
you saw him across the room. He saw you across the room.
Like, I'm single now.
No, be like,
and that guy looks pretty
hello,
good.
it's me. Or was it
essentially what I said, with a few more drinks?
Oh, so all right. I'm not gonna go there. It sort of popped to my mind. I'm like, zip. All right, go on.
Yeah, and so we started dating, and then I actually went abroad for a year.
Okay.
To do some research.
Abroad where?
To India.
Okay.
I went to go do a research grant.
All right. I hope that's not racist. That might not be kosher.
And we ended our relationship when I left, but about halfway through, decided that we actually really do like each other. And so when I got back, we moved in together and shortly after got engaged. So
awesome.
It was good to have that distance between us to sort of decide and determine that we actually really
Is it true that distance makes the heart go fonder?
I think in our case it did. Yes, it definitely did.
Yo-yo is like, you pull away, it's like, nah, come back.
Yeah,
you know,
that's pretty much what happened.
That's cool. I mean, this is about the best story I've heard about friends.
Really?
I mean, because some people are like, I wish I had those kind of friends. You know,
okay.
In my experience, I feel like a lot of people are very lonely, even though they present, you know, like an awesome front and come to work and they're great at their jobs, or maybe not, but you know, at least they come to work and there isn't. They're looking for good people. So, what would you say, in your experience? Would you give an advice to someone who's looking to find good friends at work? I mean, this might not be generally true for everybody, what you're about to say, but I mean, in your experience, what would you think are some of the elements that help you find the right kind of people and stay friends with them or build meaningful relationships with them at work?
That's a good question. I
ask awesome questions.
Really great question. Really outstanding question. I mean, it's tough. So WeWork is unique because I think a lot of people here are isolated, but that's not the case for a lot of companies. A lot of people have multiple coworkers like you. I now have 2 others as of last week. But In the past, when I've worked in like a normal traditional office.
Traditional office, yes.
I think for me, it's just been a lot of like, water cooler talk. And I don't know. I think I've also been really lucky to work in places that with people that share my values and share my interests. We had a general shared passion for the industry and for progressive values. And so it was easier to form a bond. It wasn't a place where people of all backgrounds, it wasn't a place of people just there for the paycheck.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
So it was a value-driven environment.
Yeah, it was definitely a value-driven.
So
pretty much all of my previous companies have been that way. Not 100% of the people, obviously, but a lot of them, and the ones that I got along with the most. And that's how my current company is also, but we're spread all over the country. So I think that's kind of like a good starting place. That's been a good starting place for me because we have, shared interests in the work that we do.
I mean, that comes out to me as a very important point, which is having being around people you share values with. And working around those shared values and having similar interests and similar passions. And would you also say that personality plays a role in this in any way? Your personality
so.
In your experience right now?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I've been...
What are the qualities of friendship? I'm trying to nail down some specifics, if you could bring them out.
About my personality that's fostered friendships?
How it is fostered, exactly.
I've been, I think... There are people in previous jobs, especially in my first job, one woman in particular comes to mind, my first office job. So not the girl I was talking about before, but a woman who was always so friendly, so cheerful. She always finished her email saying thanks, but she was also really smart and powerful and accomplished, and just like had a really positive energy. And she was somebody that I tried to emulate in my own, the way that I carry myself. And I, at the time, was like at the bottom of the totem pole. She was near the top. And I saw that you can be a successful woman in the workplace, but still have that like cheery disposition, because that's not always obvious. A lot of women in accomplished women and women in senior positions are stern and sort of adopt these masculine traits of aggression and maybe that's also just the personality that they already have, and that's what got them to the top, but that's not my personality. And so I was really relieved, and I recognized that this woman had the positive disposition that I tried to maintain.
Okay.
Yeah. So to answer your question, I think that, in trying to emulate her, I try to be positive. I try to be smile with my coworkers and just be friendly.
Good. So
I mean, it sounds shallow though.
It's not, because what I get from this is you're telling me that you found a mentor of someone you want to be like.
Yeah, someone I look up to.
Who brought, like Sheryl Sandberg said, bringing your whole self to work, where it's like you are successful, but you are essentially not carrying yourself based on your qualifications. You have a personality, you have a life that you bring to work, and everybody sees it and knows it. Now, speaking about that, it's one thing to talk about friends at work, positive side, and you've got one of the most positive stories in terms of, hey, you found your significant other at work. What have you had any experiences with someone at work where it's like things didn't go quite right? You were friendly with this person, but they were either being mean due to their personality or some issues they were having, or even could be from your end, or, I mean, you have a guy, so this will not sound weird, but you're a very beautiful woman, all right? So have you had a situation where somebody wanted more, their friends, just being inappropriate at work? Because I feel to just set some more background to this, especially for females. It happens for males also, but especially particularly for females, it's talked about more, where part of the reason why people are not as friendly is that some women think and have experienced men making unnecessary overtures, or inappropriate overtures just because they're being friends.
Yeah.
So have you had any kind of experiences like that? Or it doesn't have to be that extreme, but something where you're like, if I wasn't as friendly, maybe this person or this situation wouldn't have happened.
So I think I've been lucky to work in places where the leadership has created a culture where that sort of stuff hasn't been an issue. I've worked in pretty small companies, so I haven't had a lot of, I haven't, worked in corporations with hundreds of people and have a lot of those internal interactions. Outside of my company, I've definitely had experiences where I feel like unnecessary attention or inappropriate attention. We, in the solar industry and in the clean energy industry here in DC, have a lot of networking events, have a pretty big community, and that between multiple companies and organizations, and we host a lot of events and happy hours and whatever, usually happy hours. And in those, I feel...
Go on. Huh? Just making a joke. There's a lot of drinking.
A lot of drinking, yes. And I always approach those from like a professional or a friendly way to make professional relationships or friendships, but not romantic relationships.
Exactly.
And that's not always the case from other people who are participating in those events. And so I felt that there's been some of that there. But I've been lucky at work to not have to deal with that. But I will say, to answer your question in a more specific way, I do, in places like WeWork, for example.
As a community of companies?
As a community of companies with people I don't know, I don't smile at men as much as I do as women. At women. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
is that a defense mechanism there?
It's not a defense mechanism. It's more of just like a preventative. I just don't even want to open that door. I mean, it's like, I think any woman who listens to this knows, like, you just don't make eye contact with men because, like, even walking down the street, because you don't know what signals it might send. I think that it's often interpreted in like the wrong way, and so I find myself doing that at WeWork just to avoid like any potential like inappropriate signals or misconstrued signals. But I haven't had to worry about that at previous jobs because I work with those people and they know the situation,
Okay, so I want to delve into this just slightly more, just a little bit more.
Okay.
Because on the one hand, if you weren't in a relationship, you would be open to somebody talking to you, and if not, there's. I don't want to. As much as I understand your perspective and I agree with it, I also don't want to make it seem like, guys always just want to jump on the next girl.
Oh, I know that's not the case. Yeah, I totally know that's not the case. But it's like it's to prevent. I don't know. Yeah, it's like that isn't always. That's not like what probably like 99% of men are thinking that way. But it is almost instinctive. Because when it does happen, it will like ruin all future interactions.
Yeah. I mean, I remember it happens the other way around too. Interestingly, I remember being friends with someone, being friendly with someone here. It actually happened at WeWork, and the person thought, oh, it was a lady. The person thought, I wanted something else by just being friendly, and I was like, and at first he just stopped talking to me, and then they realized, oh, this is where I'm friendly with everybody, but it kind of ruined everything after that, because it was like, I felt they were immature about how they dealt with it. So it was like, even if what you thought was what I thought, if you thought I was approaching you for a romantic relationship, even then, there are smart ways to say, to approach it and say, this guy hasn't said anything, he hasn't presented anything inappropriate. It's just been friendly, and you're like,
but instead of just end it,
and then later they're trying to come back and just be friends. I'm like, it's weird. It's now become weird. It's now weird for me,
Yeah.
So it's like, it's no worse.
So she thought that you were
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, but I gotta say, I can understand where she's coming from, not with you, but in general, because like if you're kind of like a product of your experiences.
Exactly, and I agree with that too, though. So, yeah, it's what it is.
Yeah, I know. It's unfortunate.
It's just sometimes. As much as we're talking about, anytime we talk about friendships, relationships, it's such a, sometimes it can be really tricky to navigate because you don't know where the other person is coming from. And you can avoid certain misunderstandings because as much as you could avoid eye contact in some contexts, that may even draw some people out because in their social or cultural context it's a different thing, meaning, and you just don't know where people are coming from. But everybody just needs to, I guess, everybody is, depending on their values, is doing what they feel is best for their best interest. And hopefully the other party gets the signal. And it's pretty cool though. So what would you say, and as we round up this conversation, and as I stop rambling,
it's a good ramble.
Thank you. What would be your advice to someone who's just navigating the work environment? Because the two things I've learned from you right now, that I think are pretty unique. Finding a job where people share the same values. Not everybody, often many people don't get that opportunity, but even if they had a choice, I feel like one of the lessons is find a place where you have shared values. But what would you say to someone who's just entering the workforce, about, particularly from a female perspective now, and say to a younger you working trying to get into workforce, what would you continue doing? What would you do differently in making the right kind of relationships at work that not just move you forward in your career, but also move you forward in having a fulfilled work life?
It's a big question. I mean, on the subject of relationships, I think the thing that I'm most proud that I've done in my short career so far is find mentors. And a lot of times they found me, and I feel I've been lucky to be in a position where I can have those relationships, but especially from senior people in the industry who are just really, really strong relationships to have. My very first job was administrative. It wasn't fulfilling in my day-to-day. So all of the value that I've taken out of that, aside from office experience, are the relationships that I formed. So I would say, since most people who are entering the workforce are probably going to start in a pretty low-level administrative sort of mundane role, look beyond that. It's not just what your title is, it's what you make of it. And for me, I was able to make relationships that have helped me make my next move, that have helped me, have written me letters of recommendation, have had all of these other values in my career, and also on a personal level. Mm-hmm. After the election, I turned to a lot of these people and for guidance and a sort of reassurance, you as somebody who's much older than me, tell me that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's been extremely therapeutic and valuable for me. So I'd say, your career isn't about your title and your pay grade alone.
Yeah.
It's what you make of it. So I'd say do that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Friends at Work with Toye. I'd like to thank my guest, Zadie. It was a real pleasure speaking with her. I hope you enjoyed our conversation too. Share your thoughts with me about this episode via email or social media. You can connect with me on Twitter at Friends at Work US and like the podcast Facebook page at Friends at Work Podcast. Also, tell your friends and colleagues about this podcast. I'm sure they will enjoy it. The Twitter handle again is Friends at Work US, and the Facebook page is Friends at Work Podcast. If you have a topic you want me to explore, or know someone interesting I should talk to, or just want to say hello, please email me at myfriendtoye@gmail.com. That's my friend Toye@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed listening, kindly give me a 5-star rating on iTunes. It will help new listeners discover the show faster. All the music on this podcast was produced by Austin Foster. He worked some of his magic to make the production sound better. Thanks, Austin. Join us next time for another episode of Friends at Work with Toye. Till then, keep smiling, help a stranger, lend a helping hand to a neighbor. In so doing, you make a tough world more bearable, even enjoyable for others and yourself. Bye for now.